1 Charlie. Mark, 1 Charlie.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm full of optimism.
Einstein's theory of relativity.
and we're still seeing it quite well through that haze.
T-minus 37 seconds.
The fight with growing
E
confidence.
equals MC.
That all men are created equal.
About the future innovations.
And growing strength in the air.
Ignition sequence.
Tear down this wall.
Something's happening. Coming up on staging.
This is Finding Your Frequency with your hosts, Jeff Spinard and Ryan Treasure. It's time to speak up, share your voice, and hear from the thought leaders.
And welcome to another edition of Finding Your Frequency. I am Jeff Spinard. I'm your host. Joining me, of course, my co-host, 13-year colleague, 18-year veteran, and Vice President of Broadcast Operations with Voice America, Mr. Ryan Treasure.
Are you ready for some baseball?
Oh, it's baseball season. Start the wind up, and you saw the first pitch yesterday.
I did. All you guys that are watching the Facebook Live video, I don't usually wear a hat during the radio show, but I had to today to commemorate.
In honor of.
Opening day was yesterday. Is actually kind of a cool thing because all 30 teams in Major League Baseball all played on the same day.
Yep.
And I don't want to get the stat wrong, but it was like somewhere in the 50s or 60s or something like that, the last time that they had an opening day where all the teams actually played at the same time. So 30 teams played, 15 lost.
Where did you go around here? What?
We went downtown Phoenix to the home of the Diamondbacks at the Chase Field.
Chase Field, that's right.
Yep, it was really, really cool, man. They had the roof was open. They had the 4 jets fly by with fireworks and
just a beautiful day, beautiful ball game day.
I have to say, and we can move right on after this, but opening day is like magical. You know, it's America's pastime, even though I know that the NFL is more popular than the MLB.
Mm-hmm.
But as we all know, most of us grew up playing baseball back in the 80s and 90s. And
I know I did.
So definitely excited about it. So go D-backs. They got their first win, so they're on their way.
Good.
Against
Good for
the division
them.
rival.
Good for the D-backs.
Yeah.
We're happy about that.
The Red Sox won too.
Good. All right. That's what I wanted to hear. Okay, so let's go back. We haven't done a show in 3 weeks. March 9th. Two. Okay.
Yep.
Well, 3 weeks ago, we had Summer Helene on.
Yes, we did. It was a good show.
Yes, it was a great show. Summer is always, she's a wonderful guest. One of the youngest executives in Hollywood, and she's been on the scene. She works with the actors, and does the music for films, and she's just so involved in the whole Paramount of things.
I like what you did there.
That was good.
Like what you did there. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy music. Yeah, so she was a great guest. We had a great hour-long conversation with Summer, and she also hosts a show called Behind the Scenes. In fact, I think that's on not next hour, but 4 o'clock.
Yep, 4 o'clock Pacific time.
So tune into Summer at 4 o'clock. You'll enjoy that show. So this week we have a very special guest coming on, but before we get there, I want to talk a little bit about business. Voice America, we do a lot of, we're a multimedia platform, not just a broadcast network. We're a media company, a full media broadcasting operation. So we do live to podcasts. We do podcasting for companies. We do live on-site broadcasting. The list goes on and on. I mean, whatever you need, we can do in the media space.
Yeah, whether it's audio editing, video editing, website,
Everything.
Graphic design, search engine optimization, marketing, blah, 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 all that stuff
It's
that's
all
digital.
there.
Absolutely.
And, this first quarter of the year has been par for the course as far as a cash flow or a revenue standpoint. But we're really starting to pick up the pace.
Yeah, we sure.
Yep. We've got a private label network that's coming up. I'm not going to tell you what the channel is, but we've got a brand new channel that's going to be coming. It's going to be live in the next couple of months. So we're working on that project. We work with bigger companies like an SAP style where we do everything for them from, the live broadcasting to the Alexa daily reports to transcription services, everything. Yesterday, I had a conversation with another company, which is going to turn out to be a pretty big operation.
Nice.
We're going to start out with some podcasting for the first, quarter, but that's going to turn into something, and knock on wood, something pretty significant. And I guess without getting into great detail or saying names just yet, we should be pretty good on that end.
Yeah, I think Voice America has a unique opportunity this year, and we've already kind of started working the road with, several content partners, several media partners, digital partners. One thing I want to give a big shout out to is mailjet.com. You guys go check out that service. We'll be putting a link up on the Finding Your Frequency page in the next few days. And something that's cool, if you guys go there and use that service, you'll be able to leverage one of their higher end platform services for a reduced cost because they're a supporter of the Voice America Talk Radio Network and Finding Your Frequency. But that's just one of many partnerships that we've been working on from both technology, content, and media. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So, again, the first quarter of the year has turned out to be something that moving into the second quarter of the year and into the third quarter, we're going to be expanding the network and growing. So very happy about that. So we got a lot of work to do, Ryan, and you've been pretty busy lately.
Bring it.
Yep. There you go. Every time I talk to Ryan, he's got his checklist open, and it's about 2 pages deep. And he's usually about halfway through by the time I talk to him. So, that's good.
Yeah, we have a lot of cool stuff going on, especially technology-wise. Here in about the next 60 days or so, we'll be releasing the Voice America Internet Talk Radio Alexa skill, which will then be followed up with some activities through Google Home, and then also working on Apple Siri, the next one, to get some integration with our content through some of those voice-activated services, which are widely popular right now, about 350 million devices across the country in people's homes. So it's really, really good reach.
It's a lot of devices. And of course, we're going to be enhancing our TV platform and doing some work with voiceamerica.com to bring video content under one umbrella. So
boom, multimedia. Absolutely. I'm excited about this show today, only just for the fact that our guest is awesome. Mm-hmm. Number 2, we've been trying to get her on for a couple of weeks, and we've had some scheduling stuff happen, and we finally were able to get a time together where we could all do the thing. And here we are. We're right up against it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be a good show. So stick around. I think we probably hit a commercial break, and let's bring Jane in.
Yeah, guys, go check us out all over social media at voiceamerica.com on Facebook, and then of course you can check Jeff and I out on Twitter at Radio Ryan1 at Jeff Spinney 2, and go check out the Finding a Frequency website, findingafrequency.net. Stay tuned. We'll be right back right after these messages with our guest for today, Jane Velez-Mitchell.
And welcome back to Finding Your Frequency. I'm your host, Jeff Spinnard.
I'm your co-host, Ryan Treasure.
And after a very long, extended break, we have Miss Jane Velez-Mitchell on air with us. Jane is a nationally known and syndicated newscaster, twice a New York Times bestselling author, and 4-time Genesis Award winner from the Humane Society of the United States. Jane is the founder and editor of JaneUnchained.com, which is a digital news network focusing on animal rights and the vegan and compassionate lifestyle, with over 1 million social media followers, producing multiple live video news feed reports from across the country numerous times a day. Jane, welcome to the show.
Well, Jeff and Ryan, it's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm very excited about working with you guys. And it's just wonderful that we can get the message out and not just rely on mainstream media, because
exactly.
You know what? When they put a chokehold on certain information, people aren't hearing what they need to hear. And so I applaud Voice America for allowing me to give Americans some really important information that they need to help. They need to hear it for their health, for the sake of the planet, for the sake of the environment, for many, many reasons. I've got some information that they need to know.
Agreed. Well, listen, Finding Your Frequency is all about, how you found your frequency. So tell us.
I'm tuning it right now. Hold on.
So give us I know you're giving us the story. Tell us how you started this whole thing out, and you went through your H&L and headline news and all that good stuff. Talk to us a little bit about your path.
Well, I was born and raised in Midtown Manhattan. I grew up across the street from Carnegie Hall.
There you go.
and I went to New York University, and I had a very interesting background. My dad, who was Irish American, was an advertising executive, very conservative. My mom was from Puerto Rico. She she had a dance troupe, Anita Velez Dancers, and they met because they both liked to dance, and they would stop the show. They would like to, at the time, you'd go to dinner and there would be a little orchestra. I don't know if you remember back in these days where people would go to restaurants and they would have like a little dance area where there would actually be like an orchestra and people would dance. And my parents were always very proud of everybody would stop to look at them because my mom was a professional dancer and my dad danced very well. So my mom happened to be pretty much a pescatarian, and my dad was quite a meat eater, but he converted to pescatarianism. So when we grew up, we thought we were vegetarian. However, we did eat fish and eggs and cheese and dairy products. As I got older and became a journalist, I worked in numerous markets. Fort Myers, Florida was my first job. Then I went to Minneapolis, Minnesota. Then I worked in Philadelphia. And somewhere along the line, I started to get information about what was happening to animals in our society. And it's just morally reprehensible. I saw some head injury experiments done on baboons at a university when I was reporting in Philadelphia. And I said, this is wrong. It's morally wrong. And I have an obligation to do something about it. And between that and my background, I just knew that my life's mission was to speak for voiceless animals who can't speak for themselves, who have far more in common with us than they have separating us. Anybody who has a dog knows that dogs dream, that they have their quirks. I have 3 little rescues, and they are all completely 100% different.
Yep.
They have different habits, different desires. They like different treats. They have different fears. You know, one is terrified of the fireworks, the other not so much. They're just like people. And so, you know, Americans consider themselves animal lovers. But the truth is that there's a big disconnect. Some animals we choose to love, and they sit on our couch and we watch TV with them. And others we pretend don't exist, and we eat them. And, you know, what's happening to animals in factory farming, those animals are just like our dogs and cats. And it's really, it's wrong. It's morally wrong.
Totally agree with that. I mean, the way they just raise these animals, and, you know, it's just get as many in one space as possible and then off to the slaughter, and, you know, no compassion. It's just, it's morally wrong. I agree with you 1,000% on that.
Yeah, Jane, I kind of have a question along those lines. Sure. You know, I 100% agree that the way that farmed animals are, you know, taken care of, maintained, killed, all of that stuff is absolutely incorrect. And, you know, I always look at it just because my family is a country backwoods kind of family, grew up in the sticks kind of thing. And so a lot of my family members, they don't go to the grocery store and buy food. They just literally go out and they hunt like old humans used to do. So what is your take on that type of using of animals? And are you against that as well? And tell me why.
Well, that's an excellent question. Now, I'm not an advocate of hunting, but I certainly respect people who come to terms with what they do, as opposed to people who pretend that hamburgers grow on hamburger trees, as opposed to people who would never have it in their being, who would not have the stomach to take a squealing pig and slit the pig's throat, or take a little baby calf and rip that calf away from his mother and stick him, either kill him or put him in a veal crate. You know, at least they're coming to terms with what they're doing. There's a real moral cowardice amongst people who say, okay, I love animals, but I eat them, but I couldn't do it myself, but I'm going to hire somebody who can't really afford to make a choice about what kind of job they're going to get, who really don't have a choice. They're going to have to take this job, and let them suffer PTSD, alcoholism, get involved with domestic violence, all the other things that come with killing every single day. Imagine what it would be like to have to kill animals day in and day out, year in and year out. That's your job. You know what? You ordered the hit. And you are just as responsible. I covered crime for many years, and I did have a crime show after I did my stint at, Florida, Minneapolis, Philadelphia, New York, LA, New York, and then I was most recently on HLN. I covered a lot of crime, and you know that when you order the hit, it doesn't matter whether you pull the trigger.
Right.
You're just as culpable as the person who pulled the trigger, and I believe that also applies to killing animals for food.
Agreed. Jane, we have a caller on the line. Paige is her name. Paige, welcome to the show. What's your question?
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I'm doing a little drive time here. So,
I hope your hands free on Bluetooth. Be safe.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hands free all the way. Okay, just real quickly, I do have a question. It's sort of pointed to you gentlemen. It's Jeff and Ryan?
Yes.
Right? Okay, are you gentlemen vegan? I'm just curious.
I am not.
Nope,
Okay,
I'm not vegan.
Okay. No judgment, just curious. So I actually do a little bit of work with Jane. I volunteer and help out with some things, which is kind of cool. And I heard she was on the show, and there's something that's been coming up over and over again. And I thought, well, what the heck? We'll get it answered on the air, which is this conversation. Two things, if I may.
Sure.
One is about humane meat. A lot of people say, well, wait a minute. I'm eating humane meat because it's the way it's raised. And I know you talked about hunting, but that was one. And then two, if I can just grab this one too, is the piece about cholesterol. So I know people talk a lot about protein, and there's a lot of answers to that, but cholesterol is something that you've been talking about, Jane, and I go, well, wait a minute. Isn't there cholesterol in all food? So those are the two questions that I have.
Thank you, Paige. And Paige is an incredible volunteer. JaneUnchained.com, which is the digital news network that I run and then I started a couple of years ago. We have volunteers all over the country and the world who go live. And Paige is one of our volunteers. So thanks for calling in, Paige. Paige raises the point about there are companies now that say it's okay to eat meat because it's humane. And here's the truth. There's no humane way to kill an animal if they want to die. But what they're calling humane is so inhumane when any organization, whether it's Mercy for Animals or PETA or Humane Society goes undercover, they see the horrific conditions inside these factory farms. I don't even use the word farms. They're factories. Ryan, you mentioned that you grew up in a rural area. The old-fashioned farmers who had a lot more respect for their animals are all being driven out of business. And it's these giant conglomerates. A lot of them, some of them are even owned by China. This is not the American way of life. I always say eat like your grandparents did because they didn't know from McDonald's or Burger King or fast food. They actually had a lot of vegetables on their plate and meat was a treat. And if you were Catholic, you ate fish on Friday. Yeah. So, this notion that somehow it's our tradition to do this is really wrong. And, 1 out of every 4 Americans dies of heart disease. Heart disease is caused by arteries to the heart getting clogged with plaque. Plaque is cholesterol. Cholesterol only exists in animal products. There's no cholesterol in any vegetables or nuts or grains or fruit. So you can't get high cholesterol from eating a plant-based diet. Considering it kills 1 out of every 4 Americans, maybe we should look at that.
Yeah, no, you definitely make a valid point on that. And I've been working really hard just from a healthy standpoint on my own diet and trying to eat more, fibrous foods and nuts and fruits and salads and all those kind of things, which I've been successful at doing, but again, I'm not a vegan. And so I do eat meat, but me personally, when you talk about farming of animals and those types of things, when I get meat, I try to get it from my uncle who goes out and hunts. He doesn't go and farm. He goes and hunts the meat that he would like, to get him by for a summer or winter or whatever's going on. He brings that back. He does all of his own processing, packaging, puts it in the freezer, and then uses that and doesn't buy any meat at the store. And so I get all of that, and I guess it's more healthy in the standpoint to have like free range food and those types of things versus those. But what do you say to a person who does eat meat and who would say, well, human beings are carnivorous by nature, and is that bad for the human being's health to not eat meat at all?
Okay, I have a great answer for that. You know what carnivores do when they see roadkill? Have you ever seen your dog come upon a piece of roadkill and wants to grab at it and you got to pull your dog off? Because they're carnivores. They're actually omnivores as well. But carnivores want meat. They don't care whether it's roadkill. They salivate. If we were really carnivores, when we were going into the supermarket and we saw a chicken's breast raw, it would take every ounce of willpower not to just grab that and eat it right on the spot. We would begin to salivate. So that is just one example of how we're not
Yeah,
actually.
I've never experienced that.
No.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, but people talk about the caveman diet. And so there's a lot of myths like cavemen ate meat. Well, truth, low-hanging fruit. Cavemen they weren't able to go to a fast food drive-through. Okay, now they found a skeleton, the remains of a paleo man from eons ago. It was one of the earliest discoveries of paleo man. And guess what? He didn't have any dental floss, so they went through the materials between his teeth, and they were vegetables.
Yep. A lot of this boils down to education, how the knowledge that's out there. And you know what? There really isn't a whole lot, much more so now than ever before. But even myself, I just came back from the doctors with cholesterol problems because I eat meat and it's just the way I was raised. A lot of it I think has to do with education and, foundation-based knowledge that gets out there. Jane, I think, you add quite a bit to the knowledge base of the vegan lifestyle and this type of lifestyle.
And Jeff, I want to say one thing. This isn't about like casting judgment on people.
Sure.
I mean, I think 99.99999% of people came from a household where meat was eaten. And even growing up in a pescatarian household, we ate fish, and people would bring hamburgers when we had cookouts, and we had to go out to the country and have. So, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm up here and I'm coming from complete purity. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and knock on wood, by Easter Sunday, I will have been 23 years sober. Okay. So,
congratulations.
I'm not coming from some place that, I'm holier than thou.
Sure.
But what I am saying is that there's this whole exciting, really incredible adventure that people are missing out on, because we only kill about 7 animals that we eat on a regular basis: cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, goats, lambs, and I guess to include your relatives, Ryan, deer, right?
Venison.
Yeah, venison. But there are tens of thousands of vegetables and fruits and nuts and grains. So believe it or not, there's more variety in a plant-based diet than there is in eating the same thing over and over again. I mean, I heard that Americans eat 50 billion hamburgers a year. I mean, we're
that's a lot of burgers.
20 million people. Things have gotten out of hand. And I think one of the reasons why there is this plant-based movement, I'll tell you very quickly. One is for human health. Processed meat, which is how most people consume a lot of their meat, which is bacon, hot dogs, etc., is officially cancer-causing, according to the World Health Organization. And so right there, okay? Then the second is heart disease, we discussed. The third is dementia. When your arteries get clogged, they don't just get clogged to the vessel, the artery to your heart. The vessels throughout your entire body get clogged. There's been a skyrocketing in dementia in sometimes younger people now, sort of fogging over. And part of it is just cholesterol clogging the vessels in the brain. So if there, and the other thing is, when I went vegan 21 years ago, there were very few alternatives. I'd go into a vegan restaurant, I knew everybody and it was empty. Now I can't get a table. So there's so many alternatives. Even at the traditional supermarkets, there's a vegan and vegetarian section. I was in Fort Myers, Florida, where we fight against the laboratory monkey breeding industry down there. And I was working with the senior citizen, a lovely lady. And she said, I'd like to eat this way, plant-based, because she has all these rescue dogs. She goes, but there's nothing out there for me here in Fort Myers. I said, let's go to the grocery store. We went to the supermarket. Guess what? They had an entire vegan section at the supermarket, the
Right.
regular old supermarket. We had vegan cheeses, chow cheese, follow your heart. There was vegan bologna. So these alternatives now are just ubiquitous. In fact, the big meat companies like Tyson are investing in the meat alternatives because they've done the studies and they see that the model we have today is unsustainable. I don't want to chew your ear off, but I'll just say this. Okay, we have approximately 7.6 billion people on the planet. We kill, our culture, our world kills between 50 and 60 billion farm animals. It's off the charts.
Unbelievable.
To grow all the food to feed those farm animals who eat a lot more than humans do, we have to decimate the forests. That's it's the leading cause of wildlife extinction. So what we're doing basically is mowing down the entire world, killing all the natural animals that God put on this earth so that we can, and they're not making love, these factory farm animals, they're all violated.
Right.
So we can mass produce all these animals, these other animals that aren't good for us, so we can kill them. And it's contributing to human world hunger. It doesn't really make sense.
So Jane, when you talk about, all of those different animals that, if let's say the entire world was able to skip their current process and move to a vegan-based lifestyle and vegan-based nutritional supplement, what would happen to the populace of wild animals or animals in general? Would there be an overpopulation of animals at that time because of the 7.6 billion people not eating any meat?
No, because none of the animals they're eating, aside from the deer and the venison that your relatives and those folks who do that kill, are coming into this world naturally. They are all violated. I don't want to be extreme, but the industry term is rape rack, okay? So they're all violated to be inseminated. And so we're mass producing them. They wouldn't exist if we didn't produce them like widgets.
True,
Meanwhile, that we would see the forests would begin to regenerate because we wouldn't have to destroy so many forests to create cropland to feed all those animals. I mean, when you look at farm animals, what are they doing? If they're not sleeping, they're eating.
Right.
And so it takes 38 pounds of grain to create 1 pound of beef. It's the most inefficient food source on the planet. And people always say protein. Well, guess what? There's more protein calorie per calorie in kale than there is in steak. There's plenty of plant-based sources of protein that don't have the hormones and the antibiotics and all the other things because they give them hormones to fatten them up. They found out that hormones fatten animals up. So they're packed with hormones. Now, those hormones are supposed to pass through the animal system before it's slaughtered. But do you have any confidence in the USDA?
Never
Not
have.
At all. It's a big no.
I just watched a video on that the other day on Facebook, and it was a documentary about the FDA, and it was comparing, the types of foods that are available in the U.S. market versus like a European market. And there are, 10 to 15 carcinogenic-based preservatives that the FDA has cleared for use here in the United States that are not even legal in Europe. So if that tells you anything about the FDA.
Oh, yeah. We've become a dumping ground for chemicals that are being banned in other countries. The average American woman puts hundreds of chemicals on her body every day because the skin is the largest organ. And she has no idea what those chemicals do, how they interact. And then we wonder why people are getting these, diseases. And guess what? Everybody's running around raising money for the cure that never seems to come around. Meanwhile, they're getting huge salaries. All the heads of those nonprofits, huge salary. Think twice before you give money for the cure when the cure is preventing the disease in the first place.
Jane, we have another caller. We've got Danny from Portland on the line. Danny, welcome to the show.
Hey there. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Terrific. Well, I just saw on my newsfeed that Jane Velez-Mitchell is on your show, so I'm just now calling in. I must have missed the first 40 minutes. But I just wanted to call and say that I'm so excited that the show is on. And so I haven't heard what you've been talking about, but I just want to say, Jane, I have a million questions for you always. You are the source. But Jane knows that I just went vegan 2 years ago, and I spent 55 years eating steaks and chops and burgers. I'm from Chicago.
Okay.
And so I really had a complete and total lifestyle shift that I never thought I could do. So I am here to say, if I can do it, anybody can, because dairy was my middle name. I mean, you'd have to pay me $1 million to, not eat dairy for a day back then, until I found out what was happening to the animals.
Hey, and Donna, you want to know? Yeah. You want to know something that's awesome? Jane's going to be doing a show here on the Voice America Influencers channel, and you will be able to call in and ask her all of these questions
week if you want to.
Woo! Well, that's great. Is there anything else you want me to ask or say or anything? I just love this show is happening.
Oh, well, we thank you so much for calling in. And, of course, stay tuned to Jane's Facebook page. And she'll be promoting the show.
I do have one question. Did you go to the vegan lifestyle because of the way the animals are treated or because of a lifestyle or health reasons?
Very good question. Yeah, and, I even hesitate to use the word lifestyle, but I think it's about aligning my values and beliefs with, my actions. And what happened is I just started, because of the internet on Facebook, I started to see some of the footage of what was happening to animals in factory farms. And I thought it had to be exceptions of cruel places. And when I learned the truth of what was happening, and then I watched Earthlings, a documentary, and then I watched What the Hell and Cowspiracy, and I started to see the whole diabolical connection to greed and incredible suffering. It was my heart. It was my heart first, and I said, I'll eat cardboard before I eat another animal. I didn't know what to eat.
Gotcha.
So I lost a lot of weight. Now I've gained it all back because you can eat a million things.
Don't eat cardboard, because Jane just said there is like a bazillion combinations of vegetables that you could eat.
Unbelievable.
Danny, thanks for calling in.
Terrific.
Thanks for calling in. We appreciate it, and you'll be able to call Jane every week when her show starts in April. But we're going to take our next call. We have Donna calling in from
L.A.
L.A. Okay, it looks like an H. I was saying, what's a L.H.? Anyway, Donna, welcome to Finding Your Frequency.
Hi, thanks. Hi, Jane.
Hi.
I have a question. I'm a vegan. I've been a vegan for about 6.5 years, and I keep reading a lot of articles and seeing a lot of controversy about the new lab-grown meat that is not, I don't think it's available yet, but there's a lot of talk about it happening and growing real meat in labs. And I'm curious what your opinion is about that, because in the vegan world, there's a lot of controversy about it. And so I just wanted to know how you feel about it.
Did you say growing meat?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, in a lab.
Yeah, and you know what? People initially get grossed out by it, but if you've ever visited a slaughterhouse, which I have done many times, this is very clean, and it's certainly, slaughterhouses are the dirtiest place on the planet. Because I do a daily vegan cooking show on my Facebook, facebook.com/Jane Velez-Mitchell every day, 12:30 p.m. Pacific, 3:30 Eastern. And sometimes if we don't wear gloves and we, mixing the food, people are like, oh, you're not wearing plastic gloves. Well, guess what? What I say to them is, you want dirty? Go to a slaughterhouse. We all wash our hands enough. Because I also wrote a book called Addict Nation, where I talked about how we are brainwashed into this level of cleanliness. I'm a very clean person, but I don't need to eat food off my floor. Like, how people say, oh, you could eat off my floor. Well, guess what? I want to eat off your floor. All right. And so what we're doing is we're using surgical strength cleaners to clean our house, to make it surgically clean, to the point where our kids are not able to develop immunities because they're living in sort of a bubble. Meanwhile, we don't realize the real dirt out there, and the real dirt out there is in slaughterhouses, in the animal agriculture. I mean, think about it. I don't want to gross you out, but feces, urine, blood, okay, need I say more? So to get back to the clean meat, it's totally clean. What they do is they take a tiny little piece of one chicken, and then they grow it. And at first, when they first put together the first lab chicken and the lab beef, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, it's constantly going down. And now they expect, for a couple of $100, you can get this food. And then in 5 years, it's going to be, $10, $5. So the economies of scale, and also the research. Now, the smartest people on the planet are putting their money. I'm talking about the Bill Gates types. They're all putting their money into this because everybody who is a visionary knows that our system is unsustainable. Okay, it's just not sustainable. We're going to be 9 billion people by 2050. One of the stats that I saw that really freaked me out the most, there were half as many people on this planet when I was in high school as there are today.
The growth rate is insane.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah. So everybody can't be eating burgers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. First of all, it's horrible health-wise. But secondly, our planet cannot sustain it.
How can it?
Yeah, that is such a great point. Donna from Los Angeles, thank you for calling in. We have another caller holding on the line. I hope she was able to answer your question, Donna. And tune in April on the Voice America Influencers channel, as Jane will be broadcasting her show live weekly. So thanks for tuning in. Let's take our next caller, Sandra from Florida. Hey, how are you today?
Hey there. I'm great, and congratulations. Jane, this is Sandra Mendelson. I sent you that book that I don't know if you remember, totally in sync with everything we're talking about, channeled from the animals.
See? She's got a mind like a steel trap.
Yes.
No pun intended.
Hi, Sandra. Tell us what your question is. It's good to hear from you.
Oh my gosh. I have been following you on Twitter. You know, it's so simple that one answer benefits everyone. One way of eating, one way of buying and shopping benefits the planet, benefits your body, benefits the animals. I mean, it's really kind of brainless. I guess what I want to know is, what do you think, other than being a model in your own life, you know, leading by example, what do you think the average bear can do most effectively? You know, reposting your posts, for example, and signing petitions. What else are we missing on a day in, day out basis that can make the biggest difference to shift consciousness?
Well, I always say that the most powerful tool we have for social change is our cell phones, because you know, to take a TV network, millions of dollars and all sorts of satellite equipment to go live, and every day I go live on my cell phone. So I would urge everyone, every meal, every vegan meal, a plant-based meal that you have, a pretty one, you know, take a picture of it, put it on Instagram, and also start doing your own vegan cooking shows. I don't want the exclusive on this one. Anybody with a cell phone, and you can get an LED light from Amazon for $20. You can get a selfie stick for $10, and just start doing it yourself. As long as you have Wi-Fi, you can, or it's a good signal, because we do protests. Sometimes we don't need Wi-Fi. We're out in the street and the signal's fine. Start showing people, because the whole idea is to normalize a plant-based diet. We have been so conditioned. We get thousands of images every day equating meat consumption with social status, patriotism, family values. For men, it's masculinity. For women, it's femininity. And none of it is true. I mean, actually, erectile dysfunction, which is a precursor to heart disease, occurs when when the vessels in the penis get clogged. And so the truth is that eating meat, increases the chance of having erectile dysfunction. Now, a doctor will then give you a pill because they don't get training in nutrition. If you go plant-based, you can reverse erectile dysfunction. So it's actually equating plant-based eating with masculinity. Now, what we found in studies is that men are far more likely to give up dairy, because they associate dairy with femininity, because it's the mother's milk of another species. So men are more likely to say, okay, I'll give up dairy, but they have a really hard time giving up meat. Women can give up meat, but they have a harder time giving up dairy. Why? Because we've been culturally conditioned to believe that meat is masculine and dairy is feminine. And it's all a crock.
It is a crock. It sounds like a crock. I want to change direction a little bit. Sandra, thanks for calling. Did you get your answers?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
Don't forget to tune in to Jane's show. Yep, coming up in a couple of weeks in April.
I want to change directions a little bit. We've got about 10 minutes left. You are a New York Times bestseller. You wrote a book about a very famous case out here in Arizona with Jodi Arias.
Yeah, that case hits big here in our hometown.
Huge.
Oh, yeah. I was living in Phoenix for a while covering that case.
Okay.
I think the entire news network across the country was living here for a while for that one.
I had a very nice time in Phoenix. Yes, I enjoyed it very much. Yes, Jodi Arias. My book is called Expose: The Secret Life of Jodi Arias. And, you know, Travis Alexander, who was the victim, who was stabbed 29 times, his throat was slit ear to ear. A lot of times people say butchered, and I say, yeah, butchered. Think about it, okay? But I'm not going to go back to that subject, even though I want to tell you that I talked to Travis's friends. Travis was a Mormon, and in the course of researching the book, I talked to a lot of Travis's friends, and guess what? This is the last I'll say about this subject. Travis, who had struggled with his weight, decided to get healthy. He started juicing. He watched a film called Earthlings. He made all his, the Mormon young men live together in a house until they're married. He made all the guys, his Mormon buddies, sit down and watch Earthlings. And he was fighting to get pigs out of pig gestation crates. So I had a soulmate in the victim in this case. And I was shocked when they told me that, but unsolicited, they mentioned that to me. He was a very caring man, and it was a very sick and twisted case. And I learned a lot about one of the things covering crimes. I learn about extreme examples of some things that we come across sometimes on a milder form. So Jodi Arias had borderline personality disorder. She didn't know where she ended and somebody else begins. So what I learned talking to doctors like Dr. Drew Pinsky was that borderlines are generally not murderous because they often kill themselves. But what they do is they attach themselves to somebody else because they don't know who they are. And Jodi Arias attached herself to Travis Alexander. And so what they do is they infiltrate the person's life to the point where they want to merge completely. So he was a Mormon, she became a Mormon. He was involved with prepaid legal. She went there, but she really got involved with prepaid legal.
How dare they let her in?
So, his friends became her friends. So she had infiltrated his life to the degree when he tried to remove himself from her life, it was very difficult.
She wasn't having it.
It's a cautionary tale. It's a cautionary tale when you get a pit in your stomach and you get a feeling that this is not right, step away.
Jane, how did you get involved with this, by the way?
I was never really interested in the crime genre. It kind of fell on me because I fell into it because I was working in local news as an anchor for many years. And I worked in New York, but in LA, of course, we had high profile trials like the O.J. Simpson case.
Right.
So I was in local news. I anchored out of the Paramount Studios at KCAL Channel 9 and with a legend by the name of Jerry Dunphy. And I had a good run, 12 years. And then, they were changing their thing. So I have a friend, Harvey Levin, who is now the head of TMZ. Well, at the time, he was just starting his first show, Celebrity Justice. And I was kind of like, what am I going to do next? And he called me and he said, I'm having a hard time getting reporters for my show. And I said, what about me? And he said, you do it? And I said, hell yes. So everybody told me you're crazy. It's going to run for 13 weeks. Then you'll never work again. You'll be branded as tabloid. This is career suicide. I said, you know what? Life's short. I throw my hat over the fence. I'm an adventurous person. So it lasted for 3 years. I ended up covering the Michael Jackson trial out of Santa Maria, California, which was on my deathbed. Honestly, images from that trial will flash because it was just a madhouse. The whole case from beginning to end was just wild.
Circus, right?
I've never seen anything like it. And so during that time, I began filling in for Nancy Grace because I was a reporter for Nancy Grace from the courthouse. And then after the show wrapped up, Celebrity Justice wrapped up, I started filling in for Nancy Grace. And then I was offered a chance to have a show before her, and I did for 6 years, and I had a great time. And by the way, Nancy just got a show on A&E. She emailed me yesterday and said, watch my show last night on A&E. So if you're a fan of Nancy Grace, check out Nancy's new show on A&E.
There we go.
Nancy Grace. Yeah, she's great.
And now Voice America. We'll be doing a show on Voice America now. Jane?
I'm very excited about it. I think you've got a great thing going.
Thank you.
And I know Summer Helene, and she was perhaps the one who suggested that you call me.
She was.
I'm so glad you did.
She was
fantastic. And, I am doing this for one reason and one reason only. Every morning I wake up and I say, this is the most important story that nobody's talking about. The best and the brightest, the powers that be, where are they on this issue? The New York Times has a whole section devoted to climate change, but then the next picture over is how to make a honey baked ham. I mean,
right.
What are they thinking? And it's crazy. This is, let me tell you another thing. I go to Veg Fest all around the country. I'm going to Texas twice in the next month. You want to talk about mom and pop businesses? Vegan businesses. You go to a Veg Fest, you see family-owned businesses making everything from non-leather goods that are cruelty-free, everything from deodorant to beauty products to food. chutneys and peanut butters and
Right.
all sorts of fabulous things. Mom and pop businesses from beginning to end. This is what I would call compassionate capitalism. And so we have kind of been demonized, our group, like, oh, we're some sort of, tree livers. We live in a tree.
Yeah.
No, I worked for 40 years. I think I had maybe 2 weeks of sick days in 40 years. I'm part of the system, but I also believe that Americans are decent people and they need to know what's really going on in these factories that produce.
Well, Jane, America's going to get to hear you every week from 10 to 11 a.m. on Monday mornings with your show, JaneUnchained.com. We're very excited to have you start this program up. Looking forward to working with you, and I know the audience is really going to appreciate having you as part of the network. I know I am.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm really excited about it.
Absolutely.
Jane, we thank you so much for being on. We're running up against the top of the hour here. We're hitting that clock. I know you know how that works. So
Yes.
We'll definitely have to have you on again. Thank you for enlightening me. As you know, I come from one of those families who hunts and we fish and we do all that stuff. And I appreciate your take on it, and definitely have learned some things on how to better my lifestyle. And thank you for your for shedding light on that scenario. We appreciate it. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, Jane Velez-Mitchell, you can check out her radio show launching April 9th, my mom's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. 10 a.m. Pacific time on the Voice America Influencers channel. You can find all things Jane Unchained by just searching hashtag Jane Unchained. Go check out our website, JaneUnchained.com. And of course, Jeff and I all over social media at Radio Ryan 1, at Jeff Spinney 2, and of course, findingyourfrequency.net. We'll be back next week at the same time right here at 2 o'clock Pacific time on the Variety channel. Stay tuned for more Finding Your Frequency next week.